Okay, so this is something I usually don't do very often, which is I decided to make two separate review for this match week. I'm gonna decide to do the review for the Saturday games tonight, and then I'll do the review for the Sunday game tomorrow. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I got home a little bit early. Well, technically, when I say early, it's not really early at all. It's like 10:15 p.m. right now, but it's early enough for me to do this review, and I don't have to like do a long review tomorrow. Plus the fact that I have to do something tomorrow. But either way, let's get into these 7 games, and there wasn't really a whole ton of scoring in these 7 game. Only one game that had more than that had a team score more than 3 goals, and unfortunately that was the game that I attended, and it's not for a good reason. Okay, but first of all, let's start off with Chicago, who drew 1-1 against Orlando City, and for the second week in a row, if you're an Orlando City fans, this must be a very infuriating draw, and you felt like you just dropped 2 points. Now, unlike last week where there was some refereeing decision that kind of goes against them, this game they have nobody but themselves to blame of how they did not get all 3 points in this game. In the first half, there was no score, and to be fair, this game wasn't really very fun to watch as a neutral. Not really a lot has happened, but in the second half, Dwyer, of course, scored from Nani. So Nani, another assist, now 2 assists in 2 games. And really, this goal that Chicago conceded was very poor defending. Like, Dom Dwyer just literally just skate past that last defender. And, I talked about how the Fire's back line is a huge issue. That goal basically shows why. And then, to make matters worse for Chicago, Corrales, of course, got sent off because of denial of goal scoring opportunity. And you think, after that, Orlando's got this. They're going to get all 3 points in this. There is no way in the world they are going to basically not get anything but 3 points at this, because they have the lead, they have a man advantage, and they would potentially maybe add a couple more goals in terms of the 1-0 lead that they had. But instead, what I was very surprised of what Orlando City did was they set back. They literally set back, and they allow Chicago to kind of dictate the play. And keep in mind, during the last 20 minutes, Chicago were down to 10 men. But when you look at how things were going, it didn't look like they were down to 10 men. It looked like it was still 11v11. And Orlando City just decided to sit back and think that they can just ride out a 1-0 victory out of Chicago. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, because in the 95th minute, it's CJ Sapon from Frankowski to tie it up. And yeah, that is a very infuriating goal to concede. And, it's one thing to concede a goal late in stoppage time to, drop 2 points. But it's another when when you had a man advantage and you let that happen. And there was a sign that showed that Orlando City was potentially going to give up that goal, because Chicago really pushed forward, and just Orlando City, they didn't do anything in terms of the last 20 minutes, despite the fact that they had a man advantage. Shots in this game, Chicago had 7 shots compared to just 2 that Orlando City has. Chicago had 3 shots on goal compared to 2 that Orlando City has. Chicago had 3 shots off target compared to none that Orlando City had, and there was 1 block shot for Chicago compared to none that Orlando City had. Possession-wise, Chicago dominated the possession 60-40, and the most alarming thing about the stats here is that Orlando City only had 2 shots on target, and I think those 2 shots came before the red card. So virtually Orlando City didn't have any shots, even on goal, when they were up a man. That is just really shocking, and just that is something that, if you're an Orlando City fan, is gonna drive you absolutely nuts. And for Orlando City, despite the fact that they have 2 points right now in the standings, they could have easily had at least 4 or even 6 points if that decision from last week against NYCFC didn't really go against them. But as for Chicago, it's a good point to get. It wasn't a pretty game that you played, but you at least got a point out of. And when you're down to 10 men and you're able to come back and get a point out of that, it's always going to be a good result, no matter what opponent you are facing. Next up, New England. Well, they lay an egg against Columbus, and just like this game, this one was not fun to watch whatsoever. Jarzy Zardes gets his scoring account begin here in the 2019 season when he scored from Pedro Santos in the 26th minute, and I believe that was actually the first shot on goal for Columbus up to that point. And in the second half, it looked like New England had a chance to equalize after a penalty was called, and I think it was Sorrow that basically concede the penalty. And that penalty kind of reminds me of what happened between Rayados and Atlanta United in the CCL midweek game, because remember in that instant when Atlanta gave up that penalty to Rayados, LGP basically kind of extended his arm a little bit, but there wasn't really a lot of contact. This was very similar where Sorrow, it looked like he kind of extend his arm a little bit, hits the defender, but it was kind of soft. But still, the referee gave that decision, and unfortunately for New England, they couldn't take advantage of it because Zach Steffen, who I'm going to say he is the best penalty kick stopper in the league right now, just basically saved that penalty. I mean, it wasn't a really good penalty from Fagundes. He basically just hit it kind of like straight down the middle, and for Zach Steffen, all he needs to do is guess the right way. And then New England, of course, continued to try to push forward, but unfortunately, they concede a goal in the 96th minute from Zardes again. So Zardes with a brace from Jimenez, and Zach Steffen getting on the board too. Not too often you see goalkeeper getting on the board and get an assist, and that goal pretty much was lights out in terms of this game, and that it's pretty clear that Columbus is going to walk out of Gillette Stadium with all 3 points. Shots in this game, New England had 11 shots compared to 6 that Columbus had. New England had 3 shots on goal compared to Columbus 4. 7 shots off target, that's what New England has compared to none that Columbus had. New England had 1 shot that was blocked compared to 2 that Columbus had. Possession-wise, Columbus had the better of the possession, 55% compared to 45% that New England has. And, for Columbus, first win for Caleb Porter, and certainly it's a good road win for them. And for New England, this is not a really good result from them. And this kind of, it feel like that Dallas versus New England game, it looks like that game, it was a bit of a miracle that New England was able to get a point out of this. And then in this game, they really kind of lay an egg. And, the attack for them in this game was not very good. There was really nobody that can really be a creative player and put that final ball into a good position where one of the teammates can basically slot it home. And it's certainly back to the drawing board for Brad Friedel and his New England team. Next up, Dallas. They got a 2-0 win over the Galaxy. And, I don't know if the Dallas social media page is going to get the last laugh out of this game. Mainly because, remember what I said in the preview of this week, and I talk about how the Dallas social media page was trolling Zlatan and basically stating all the facts of why Zlatan is not going to break all the MLS records this season. But unfortunately, right as I finished recording that video, they announced that Zlatan did not make the trip to Frisco with the team, and that he was officially ruled out in this game. And in some way, this must feel really disappointed for all those supporters that went to this game. And there was definitely a lot of people showed up for this game, more than you usually see in a Dallas home game. And I even heard that some people had to pay extra to just go to this game just because Zlatan is coming into town. And they must be very disappointed that they later find out that Zlatan wasn't even in the starting 11 or on the bench because he didn't even make the trip to Dallas because he's injured. Although at the same time, I'm pretty sure those fans are going to be happy the fact that at least their team was able to get a victory in this game. But in the first half in this game, there was no score in this one, but there could have been easily a couple of goals in this game as both teams had two very good opportunity. The Galaxy hit the post twice in the first half, while FC Dallas and Domenico Bocci could have easily had two goals in the first half if he just doesn't fluff those two easy chances that he has. One of them where he basically just round the keeper. All he needs to do is just put it into the empty net. Instead, he basically hits the side netting. But in the second half, there was scoring, and Dallas did get that goal from Ziegler off of a penalty. And guess who conceded the penalty from the Galaxy? Yep, that is right. It's Diego Palanta, and this is the second week in a row that he has cost the Galaxy a goal. And I think somewhere in LA and somewhere in the Galaxy front office, they're probably looking for the receipt that they got from Diego Palanta, and they're probably asking a refund for him because they're finding out that he's actually not that good. But in all seriousness, I feel like for Galaxy fan that said that Palanta is garbage and that he should, it feels like we just wasted a bunch of money to get him. You know, I think, first of all, I know he has two very bad games, and that, you know, this is the second game in a row he cost the Galaxy a goal, but at the same time, it's still very early, okay? You know, it's only 2 games that he has played with the Galaxy. Maybe he's not very familiar with the surrounding just yet, and I feel like you need to give him time, and that maybe if after 10 games he is still look as bad as he was in this first 2 game, then yeah, maybe you might think about how that signing of Diego Palanta, the guy that was supposed to come in to shore up our defense, did not really do that whatsoever. And in many ways, he is just kind of another Michael Ciani on their team. But then in the 61st minute, Dallas doubled their lead thanks to Brian Acosta from Pamlico, and that goal from Brian Acosta, what a screamer that was. I mean, he basically hit that one off the volley from 20 yards out, and that's definitely going to be nominated as one of the goals of the week. And Paxton Pamlico getting on the board for the first time this season, and I'll tell you what, Paxton Pamlico is starting to become one of my favorite players too in MLS, mainly because this kid, who is only 19 years old, and certainly there was a lot of people talking about how he is one of the most promising prospects out of the FC Dallas Academy. Yeah, after this game, it looked like he definitely could have a very bright future out of him, and don't be surprised, in about 5 or 10 years or so, Paxton Pamlico might be going to Europe and sign with a pretty decent club in Europe and even play for the national team. So, yeah, certainly it's good to see him get on the score sheet and gets on the board here. And in the end, of course, Dallas with a 2-0 victory. Shots in this game, Dallas has 12 shots compared to 11 that the Galaxy had. They had 4 shots on goal compared to just 1 that the Galaxy had this game. Shots off target, the Galaxy at 7 compared to 6 that FC Dallas has. 3 shots was blocked from the Galaxy compared to 2 that Dallas has. And Dallas had 64% possession compared to 36% possession for the Galaxy. So for the Galaxy, it's kind of a disappointing loss, although in this game, I heard they didn't, besides the fact that they didn't have Zlatan in this game, they also didn't have Alessandrini. So they basically missed pretty much their only attacking threat that they had in this game, and it's no wonder why they didn't really create a lot of chances. And yeah, Dallas, of course, take advantage of that, and they're able to get their first 3 points of this season. Next up, Houston. They also get their first win this season by beating Montreal 2-1, and I think I'm starting to see a habit where, you know how Houston last year, I talked about how they always tends to concede goal late in the game. Now it looks like they are doing the opposite. In the first half, Sofia Taidir scores another goal from Azara. So Taidir now 2 goals in these last two games. He's definitely started the season very good. But unfortunately for Montreal, that lead would be short-lived because Rodriguez then scored from Thomas Martinez in the 36th minute. And then in the second half, Manotas in the 86th minute scores from Kyoto. And that, of course, is your final score. And Houston coming from behind and scoring a late goal. It seems like the complete opposite of what they did last season, where they had the lead, but late in the game they of course concede those goals and they either drop points or drop all 3 points. And I'm guessing if you're a Dynamo fan, this is certainly the Dynamo version of a team performing late in the game that you want, rather than the last season way of how the Dynamo perform in the last 20 minutes. And also Mauro Manotas, this guy just cannot stop scoring right now. I mean, he is just red hot right now. And to be fair, Manotas didn't really had a good game in this. This was really kind of like one of the only chances that he had throughout this game, and he buries it. And something tells me that this guy is definitely going to be one of those guys that is going to be competing for the Golden Boot this year. Shots in this game, Houston had 14 shots compared to 7 that Montreal has. Shots on goal, Houston had 6 compared to 1 that Montreal has. Shots off target, Houston had 5 compared to 3 that the Impact had, and both teams had 3 shots that was blocked. Possession-wise, it was pretty even. Houston had 48% compared to 52% that Montreal has. And, for Houston, this is certainly a good, decent win, although I'm not quite sure this will give them some momentum heading into Wednesday when they play against Tigres. Or actually, I'm not quite sure, is it Wednesday or Thursday that they go down to Monterrey to play Tigres. But yeah, I don't see how they can overcome. Like, it would take a miracle for them to able to go down to Mexico and basically beat Tigres to move on into the semifinal. And as for Montreal, it's a pretty disappointing loss to them, considering the fact that they thought that they escaped Houston with a point, but unfortunately they concede that late goal. And Montreal certainly will need to try to bounce back heading into the next game. And keep in mind, Montreal will be on the road for a very long time. I think they'll be on the road until April. So yeah, they need to basically get used to being on the road for these first couple of weeks. Next up, RSL won 1-0 against the Whitecaps, but in many ways, the Whitecaps should have been probably a 0-0 game between RSL and Vancouver. Why? Because the only goal in this game was in the first half when Albert Rusnak basically puts away the penalty. But was that actually a penalty? Because when you look on the replay, Corey Bear basically looked like he dived. And as much as Corey Bear is my favorite player in MLS, besides of any other Quakes player that I like in my team, yeah, Corey Bear, come on, dude, you are better than that. You can't just simply decide to be dramatic in the box and basically decide to win your team a penalty. And I know when you look at the replay, that Vancouver player did kind of clip Corey Bear a little bit, but it was after when Bear decided to went down, and then that Vancouver player basically made contact off of him. So yeah, that was clearly not a penalty. They even go to VAR in that instant, and there is an example of why VAR didn't work. I know in this game between New England and Columbus, and I know I didn't talk about this when I reviewed this game a couple of minutes ago, but there was actually a red card incident from Brendan Bai right about the 84th minute, and it looked like Brendan Bai basically hit Pedro Santos in the head. But when they look at VAR, it looked like Brendan Bai, basically his hand was just kind of in a natural position, and it didn't look like he was intentionally trying to elbow Pedro Santos in the head. And they of course reversed the call, and instead Brendan Bai got a yellow card instead of a red card. So that was an instant where VAR worked. This instant, it did not work. And I'll also talk about this game where VAR also kind of worked, even though it's kind of hard for me to admit that was a penalty in this instant. After I finally see the replay a couple of times after I come back from this game. But, Vancouver certainly would be feeling hard done by this. Shots in this game, RSL had 18 shots compared to 16 that Vancouver had. 6 shots on goal for RSL compared to 5 that the Whitecaps had. 8 shots off target compared to 4 that Vancouver has. 4 shots that was blocked from RSL compared to 7 that Vancouver has. And possession-wise, again, pretty even, 51% compared to 49% that Vancouver has. And like I said, Vancouver will feel very kind of hard done by this decision. And I really think Vancouver played very well in this game. They definitely show some improvements from their game against Minnesota. And unfortunately, the problem for them in this game is that they just couldn't quite put away their chances. And if they would have put away their chances, this game would have looked very differently. But still, at the end of the day, I think as much as Whitecaps fan will be pretty frustrated by this result, there's definitely some positive that you can take out of this game with the way that the team is playing. And like I said before, I think, with this new squad that Vancouver has, it's going to take time for them to try to get know each other and trying to build in chemistry before this team is going to be a decent kind of team. And for RSL, it wasn't a pretty game, but you were able to get a win, albeit it was a bit controversial. You still get the 3 points at home, and yeah. But yeah, next up, oh boy, the Quakes. They laid an egg in this game, and it was a very frustrating game to watch. It was so frustrated that after Minnesota scored that third goal, I just didn't really want to record any of the footage. And that the only time when I did record was when if there was a big chance the Quakes has or when Minnesota is about to score. I was really deflated after this game. And, what was frustrated about this game was that not only we didn't score in this game, but it looked very similar to what happened last season where the defense kind of looked very shaky. Now, in the first half, there was no score, but Minnesota should have at least scored 3 goals. And the only reason why Minnesota didn't score any goal and we were able to head into halftime scoreless was because Daniel Vega basically played out of his mind. Like, he basically bailed out the Quakes with some of the most incredible save that I have seen, and certainly something that I haven't seen a Quakes goalkeeper done in a very long time. So we head to halftime scoreless, and I'm thinking that, yes, it's not a pretty first half. We kind of dodge a couple of bullets, but maybe we can get things going in the second half, right? Nope. Instead, coming out of the second half, just 1 minute into the second half, we gave away a penalty from Lopez, and they actually gone to VAR from this instant, where they basically looked to see if it was actually a handball in the box. And originally, they didn't actually show us the replay, and the people around the section that was sitting were absolutely livid the fact that the penalty, of course, was given. And then when they show us the one replay that I was able to see from the stadium, people were still kind of pissed off about this. And even one of the person sitting behind me even kind of dropped the F-bomb on the ref. And I'm not quite sure did I actually catch that in the vlog. Hopefully I didn't catch that. And if I did, then I do apologize for the explicit kind of language, and hopefully my video will not get copyright because of that. But when I look at it a couple of times when I got home, yeah, I think it was a penalty. I mean, when Lopez basically kind of lean toward the ball and kind of extend his arm to trying to handball it, yeah, that's always going to be called for a penalty. And unsurprisingly, Quintero was able to put that one away. And then Ibarra, of course, scored in the 52nd minute from Quintero. So Quintero, once again, having a monster game with a goal and an assist. And then in the 75th minute, Cummins, of course, put it into his own net after there was a free kick and the ball was kind of coming into the box. And then Cummins basically just flicked it into his own net. And that goal pretty much summarized our night. I mean, And actually, shots in this game, the Quakes had 13 shots compared to 12 that Minnesota has. Shots on goal, the Quakes had 4 compared to 6 that Minnesota has. 7 shots off target compared to 3 that Minnesota has. 2 shot that was blocked compared to 3 that Minnesota had. And the possession-wise, it's 57% possession compared to 43 that Minnesota had. But yeah, I think when you look at this performance, it pretty much kind of proves me right about the state of this team and what I thought it was going to happen with this season. Remember, when I did the prediction for the start of the season, I put this team dead last. And my reason why I put this team dead last is, yes, despite the fact that we do have Almeida, and Almeida is a very good coach, and I hope nobody's after these 2 performances is going to say Almeida out, because if you say Almeida out, I swear you are truly not a Quakes fan and you don't know anything about soccer, because I don't think these 2 games really shows that we should maybe think about sacking Almeida and that he's not doing anything right. But the reason why things still haven't improved for the Quakes is because we still have the same team that won 4 games last season. I mean, did you think that you can just bring in everybody that won 4 games last season with a new coach is going to change the culture straight away? Yeah, I don't think so. And I think this team clearly, first of all, I think we got to put Houston in for Wando. And as much as this is a very unpopular move, and the fans, they're not going to be happy the fact that Wando is going to probably not start for our game, and that it's going to be Houston there, and that it might take longer for this record to be break for Wando. It's only good for our team. Wando has just been a passenger for us in these last 2 games. He just does not hold up the ball. He can't finish, and he just don't even contribute anything to our attack. And this is not because Wando is a bad player, but it's just Wando is getting... Father Time is basically catching up to him, and that it feels like it's a matter of time before he is going to be... He has to basically hang up the boots. And, on the attacking side, the other attacking side, Eriksson, Vaco, and Espinoza, none of those guys really contributing whatsoever. And then in the holding midfield, Godoy, again, I don't know how in the world is he still getting started. Like, tonight, there was some example of him making some rash challenge, and the yellow card that he got, it was a classic Godoy move where he basically just lunged in and took out a defender, even though he didn't need to do that. And, Jitson, I thought he had a pretty decent game again. He did a good job man-marking Quintero, as that was his man to mark in this game. And then the back line, yeah, it was not very good. I mean, it was good at times, but then at times it just looked very, very sloppy. And at times, Cummins and Cassia, they just got completely outpaced by this Minnesota front three with Ibarra and Quintero that just basically breezed by them with their pace. And when I look at this Minnesota team and look at the front three that they have, I wish the Quakes had this front three. This is exactly the front three that I want to see the Quakes had, because one thing the Quakes really lack in terms of the attack, besides creativity, they do not have any speed. We have probably the slowest number 9 in our team, and probably the slowest central attacking midfield, and also the holding midfield in the entire league. So yeah, it's very frustrating to be a Quakes fans right now, but if you're a Minnesota fans, yeah, you better believe you are on cloud 9 right now. And I'll tell you what, I am definitely buying some stock on the Loons of actually making the playoffs. Yes, I know the first 2 games of the season, they play 2 of the easiest team in the league, but they are able to get back-to-back wins for the first time in their franchise history. And if this team can win on the road, and we know that they definitely can win at home, there is just, it's pretty clear that there is a huge chance for them to potentially make the playoffs by the end of the season. And I won't be surprised if they make the playoffs. I mean, I did predict them making the playoffs in my prediction, and I definitely see how this Minnesota team has definitely improved a lot from their first 2 seasons. But yeah, finally, Seattle, of course, winning 2-0 against the Rapids. Early on, it looked like this was going to be a rout because Leerdam, of course, scored in the 5th minute, and then Ruidiaz scored in the 8th minute, and it was 2-0 at that point, and it looked like it was maybe going to be 4 or 5-0. But to the credit of the Rapids, they kind of really slow down this Sounders attack, and they did had a couple of decent chances, especially in the second half. But unfortunately, Colorado couldn't find that crucial final kind of ball, and also that crucial finishing touch, and they of course lost this game. Although keep in mind, Colorado coming into this game, they basically play the same backline that they played last year, and if you're playing the same backline as what they did last year, yeah, you are probably not going to win because their backline last year was pretty god-awful. Shots in this game, Seattle had 13 shots compared to 15 that Colorado has. Seattle had 3 shots on goal compared to, well, both teams actually had 3 shots on goal. Seattle had 7 shots off target compared to 8 that Colorado has. They had 3 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that the Rapids had. And Seattle had 63% possession compared to 37% possession that Colorado has. So for the Sounders, it's a good, decent win. It wasn't a pretty victory, but they still get the 3 points. And for Colorado, you know, it's kind of disappointed that they didn't really put up much of... Well, they did kind of put up some fight at the end, but it's going to be a little bit disappointed that they weren't able to make this a little bit closer than... Or maybe even if they put away those chances, they could have maybe get out of this game with a draw. But yeah, either way, that is pretty much it for the review for the Saturday's game. Again, tomorrow I'm going to review the Sunday game, which there's going to be 4 games tomorrow. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.